I am excited to talk to my ladies primarily. And guys, if you want to be here with me, hang out. I want to welcome you into my space, my world, my thoughts, and I want to share them with you. And I hope that it inspires someone. It brings about some transformation.
Good evening and welcome to the Transparency Place.
I am excited to talk to my
I'm like, I don't know what just happened there, but that intro kind of makes me dance a little bit. But I'm excited. We're back. It's Sunday. We got a great topic. We're going to talk education. I have an educator who is joining me today. We want to talk all about education. I'm somewhat of an educator. I work in the educational field. I'm an educator. I'm a mom too, so I'm an educator, right? All right. But either way, I'm going to bring my guest onto the screen. I'm going to let her introduce herself. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Life Coach Christian here at the Transparency Place on the Real Ish Radio, and excited to be back with you. But come on, bring her on the screen. Let's talk about her and her greatness.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I honestly appreciate. Let me move that because that's just in the way. I appreciate you for welcoming me into your space today. I appreciate Rodney for connecting us together, and ultimately my cousin, Dr. LaToya Sevels, who made all of these connections happen. So thank you so much. I'm Latifah DeNully Privott. I am an early educator. I have a program in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and a home child development center named Garden of Learning Virginia. And we are currently housing children from the preschool age, which is about 2.5, all the way up to 5 for our pre-kindergarten age, or sometimes that also includes transitional kindergarten. So the ones who, because of their birthday in Virginia, everyone has to check their own state, but in Virginia, if your birthday is after September 30th, then you would have to go to school the following year after you turn 5.
Same here in Michigan. So how did you get started? How did you get started in education?
Education has always been a part of my life in one way or another. I think just to be honest, since we're in the transparency place, to kind of be honest with you, I really tried to avoid being an educator, to be honest with you. Yeah, my goal initially when I was in school, I wanted to be a pediatric occupational therapist. And I was going through these steps of figuring out what I wanted to do. And when I honed in, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. However, I got to this place where I really lost confidence. It kind of pains me to kind of say that, but I did because I was, a C student, and I was going into this competitive field that for college level, required a 4.0 and higher just for the acceptance. So I went to a community college and I did the prerequisites there to apply to the program. And while I was applying for getting ready to apply for the program, I had to do an internship at the local children's hospital. And while I was there, it made me fall in love with occupational therapy so much more, being with the children every day. I just loved it so much. And I was going through that process. It was really amazing. I was chaperoning a really amazing occupational therapist. And when everything was done, to even take it further, like while I was there, she would say, "Hey, Latifah, do you mind going to get this student today or something?" She'll say that to me. "Do you mind going to get this student?" She's like, "Because not student. I have students. Do you mind going to get this student?" Because she's like, they really just seem to just light up when you come pick them up. Everyone's mad when I come get them. So can you go get it? So she would let me go get the patients by myself and take them to the location we were going. And when we had finished up, there was a form that needed to be completed that was the recommendation form. And like in all the areas she was supposed to score me a 5 in, she scored me a 4. Like, and she had put really great detail. She said, they care more about the personal portion of it. So she decided to maybe write more than score higher.
Okay.
Well, the paper says that they pay attention to the overall number more than they pay attention to in the beginning. I'm assuming it's a numbers game, the same way they look at your GPA over anything else. And so when that happened, I was like, oh my God, I wish you would have just gave me the 5s, because at least if I didn't have a 4.0 plus GPA, And at least if I would have had maybe a higher recommendation, I would have probably felt more confident that it was the right program to apply to. And there was only one college that was offering it in Virginia. And everyone was like, oh, if you don't have a 4.2, then don't even apply. And, if you're not, I was like, so I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I still was like, I'm not going to be a teacher. I knew that. And the occupational therapist actually asked me that, Kristen. She was like, so how do you know you're not supposed to be a teacher? And I was like, because I'm not. I was just because I'm not. That's not what I want to do. I want to be here. And so I didn't apply to that particular program. And the other ones were like West Virginia, Philly. And I was like, I was a first generation graduate. I'm going into another state to go to school. My family doesn't have any money. And then the program is like everything they're telling you about the program is extremely intense. You're only going to particularly need to work about 10 hours because it's going to be so involved. You won't have time to work. And I'm like, how do I pay to live then? So it was all those things kind of thrown at me at like 19. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I decided that I was probably going to go into nursing. I knew I didn't want to be a nurse.
I love this.
That's how much I didn't want to teach, is that I was going to say, I'm going to be a nurse. And I knew if you gave me 50 jobs, nursing was going to be the 50. It was going to be 51. I was going to be the trash man, the trash woman before I was going to be the nurse. So here I go, going through this program of nursing. And when we had to do the intern portion, which was the CNA work first before applying to the program, the second night that I had left, I got in my car, honestly, and I cried. I was like, I knew I did not want to do this. And I was like, here I am, kind of feeling lost and kind of feeling stuck and out of place because I was in school with other people in this program who wanted to be a nurse. And I was just looking at myself like, I don't want to do nursing. And so I really prayed on it. I really did. And I was like, Lord, just direct my path, and I'm just gonna go where you send me. And He sent me to school to be a teacher.
You sound so unsatisfied.
He don't listen.
He don't listen. Maybe it's you that didn't listen. Because I read your website.
Exactly.
I read your website. It seems like teaching runs in the family.
Well, teaching runs in my blood, period. I had, since inception, my brother, we're a year apart. I'm 30 something, he's 30 something. And he was my first student. He really was. Even being a year apart, I did everything for him. We just kind of had this natural relationship that just kind of worked that way. And I just kind of felt at that time, the reason why I really pushed back on teaching is because I felt like it really didn't challenge me because I felt like I had always been a teacher. My mom had a child care growing up, and I kid you not, I was in middle school, and people would like drop their kid off to my mother's home. They would give me the baby and like give my mom the diaper bag. Like, oh, Latifah, I'm happy you're here. Give me the baby and to a teenager and hand the diaper bag to the adult.
But
So
that just shows how early the gift is present.
I know, and I just thought I just wanted to be challenged at something. I thought I wanted to walk into something that was just so new and so fresh, and I just wanted a different perspective, for my life. What I want to be when I grow up. I wanted to be challenged every day. I find myself teaching now, and I am challenged. I really am. I am in a place in education when it comes to my son, like to be my son's teacher, and he calls me that. Well, he calls me auntie because the kids call me auntie, and then he also calls me his coworker. So, yeah. So I'm kind of like last on the list of being mommy, but it's okay. So, yeah, I find myself being challenged all the time now. I find myself always trying to find a new avenue, always trying to deepen my understanding of how children learn and how I can be a better teacher, how I can teach them. I do find myself challenged now. And I love teaching more than ever in this age group, because this wasn't an option for me. I didn't believe, because when I was in school, it was all K through 12. I didn't even consider the younger children.
Yeah.
I didn't. And now that I find myself, before I opened up Garden of Glen, Virginia, I was teaching at this other program. And some of these, I mean, I have a third grader who I still talk to. I have one of my babies who's in fourth grade now who I still talk to. I have a few third graders and one fourth grader, and I'm still a part of their lives. They still call me and talk with me. So when I walked inside that program, like when I had to leave, it was the hardest thing I had did. It was the hardest thing I had to do was to leave those children when I left that program, because I had just began so attached, and I knew at that point when I left, I know what I'm supposed to do.
So that is what triggered you starting Garden of Learning.
Yeah, and it did. And it also, my son helped that, because I
Okay.
just realized that I'm an amazing teacher. I would toot my own horn to that. When it comes to early education, like I am in it, I'm on it, I'm flexible, even though I'm stern, I'm flexible. So I'm always finding, new ways to connect with my children and new ways to introduce them to learning. Even more than what I feel like when I was in school, I was a little bit more rigid. I feel like now I'm a bit more fluid. I kind of move in different areas. I'm like, okay, I learned this at this Montessori program. We're gonna do this. I learned, so I keep all these different things going. So I feel like I'm a much better teacher. I mean, the best is yet to come, but right now I definitely have found my groove.
So how long have you been teaching as a whole? Like
Other than my whole life,
other
Kristen.
than other than your whole life, how long have you had all your paperwork in order? There we go. Let's say that
Yeah,
part.
so the Garden of Learning opened up in 2018.
Okay.
And in 2016 is when I first had my own preschool program that I was teaching at.
Awesome. So was that the program that you left to and then okay.
Yeah, it was. It
So
was a
you
program.
said a lot, and I want to pick into like everything that you said.
Okay.
Because I honestly think that first part where you said, I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to be this, but it just wasn't working. I didn't have the confidence in myself. I think as an educator, knowing that and now being able to educate others, like, is there something you would say to that student who doesn't feel confident enough to excel in an additional program? You have a
You know
message to
what?
that student, or even a message to yourself now that you've
I
made it
do.
this far?
I do. And it kind of goes back and forth between the message that I would have for me, but also the message that I would have for parents.
Okay.
The message I would have for parents and the message I have for myself and my child. Like, right now we're going over money, and my son, for whatever reason, he's kind of stuck in this little space of some days he can identify all the coins and how much they're worth, and then some days he can't. And some days he's kind of like picking the wrong coin. I'm like, hold on, think about it. Let's see if we can, and he'll kind of look at me and I'll look away. So just to let him know I'm there, but giving him the confidence to do it himself. And he figures it out, and then we'll do our reading work, because my 3-year-olds are learning how to read. Big bone. But so we'll do that, and sometimes he'll get frustrated with himself, and then he'll be like, and I'll tell him, I'm like, look in my eyes, I'm like, I'm not leaving you. This is something you can do. We're gonna do it together. I'm like, take a breath, fix your posture, let's go back to work. I keep telling, I was like, mommy's not giving up on you, so don't you give up on you. I just think that as parents, before our kids reach the school system, we're supposed to pour into them to build them up, because they're going to be in school with children who come from so many different backgrounds, that you might have a student who's just may still be in public school, but may have their mom's a doctor and the dad's a lawyer or a judge.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they've already had such a great start early on, that some child who may had to stay at home with a cousin who put him in front of the television because mom, couldn't pay to have any. She's a single mom and couldn't pay to have someone watch a child. So I think as a parent, our responsibility and our role is to really build our children up, to really speak into them pour into them and just let them know, like, you can do anything. You just have to stay focused. You have to continue to do the work, and you'll see everything else to the end. We just really have to do that. And that's what I do with my son. I do that with every child in my program. My first baby that enrolled into my program, this was the first child I had seen that had cried all day. The only time she stopped crying when I first got her, no child had ever cried like that before in the presence of me, ever. And she cried from the moment she walked in. The only 2 times a day that she did not cry was at meal times and at nap time. As soon as she was done eating, she was back to crying. And as soon as she was done sleeping, she was back to crying again. This happened for like 5 months. I mean, I didn't know if I was supposed to terminate the child because she did not like me so much, or she didn't like being here so much, you know. But every day I would talk to her and I would say, you know, I'm not going to say her name, just, you know, for sake of it, but I'll just say B. I would be like, B, I said, I'm going to love you every day and there's nothing you can do about it. I said, it's okay. She would, you know, cry and she wanted to be with herself. And I mean, I would say that so much. My son would say, I love you. And I have like pictures. I wish I'd had them. I had pictures of my son like holding her. They're the same age, you know, he could just come up and just like hold her and like hold her and, you know, try to like embrace her and stuff. Cause I used to say, I'm going to love you and there's nothing you can do about it. So if I could say something to my younger self, it would have really been to just push myself forward, to just try to get the no instead of me deciding no. It would have just been, just let them tell you no. You know, why shoot yourself down when you can have somebody else say no? What can you do? What can be wrong, so wrong with hearing no? I think now I'm at the stage where I understand that no is not the end. It may not just be that door, but at that time it seemed like everything. To hear no just seemed like it was crushing to me. So I did not even want to hear it, because that's how my confidence was just low in that way. You know, I was a C student. I say that again, you know, I was, and I was, my home was not set up for education. It just wasn't. It wasn't a primary thing it wasn't a primary focus inside of our home. And there, I didn't even have like a place to call my own to hone in on a skill. Like, you know, if I wanted to study a little longer, or if I wanted to really focus when I got home, there wasn't much of a space. And I don't mean that parents today need to have a room that looks like a school. I just mean the independence to continue learning at home. And many children, the pandemic, you know, really put a focus on that for many people. Like, some people didn't have internet. We didn't have internet in our home for a while, you know, when I was in school. So some people didn't have internet. The pandemic exposed that. Other people didn't have desks or workspace or even supplies, you know. So yeah, I struggle with that area. Now I'm moving in a different way. I think my master's program really took me to a different place, because it was online and I would sit and do this work. And I mean, I just felt so confident. I just felt like I was really like in my zone.
You were in your groove. Yeah, you were in your groove. And rejection, I just have to say this because you keep talking. Well, you hit on it. Rejection is redirection. So even you feeling that way just directed you into really utilizing your gift, and now you're flourishing, right? You wanted that challenge, and every day now, education is different, and working with kids in general, every child is different. So that those are the challenges that you're encountering as an educator. I value you. I run from the idea of being a teacher. I am great with kids. I love kids. The teachers come. I work online. I work in a virtual school. So the kids come in the class. I do all the engagement, fun events. Are you our teacher? You're so fun. You should be our teacher. No, I'm not your teacher. Don't want to be your teacher. I love you, but I don't want to be your teacher. Because I feel like teaching comes with so much that people don't know about.
They don't. They really don't understand it. It's not even a valued field. It's not even a value field. You know, I think for me at this time in my life, to be honest with you, Kristen, I am more focused on being obedient to God than I am with what my own personal success looks like. I'm
Amen.
fine with it. I'm like, he's not slow to fulfill promises. I'm fine. I will just continue to be obedient and receive what that is for me. I'm fine with that now.
And so here's the gift in what I'm able to do every day. God always knew. So I have a social work degree and I have a minor in youth services. I've been gifted since before I got out of college, that I worked in the schools. I never had to be a teacher, but I get the opportunity to go into classrooms and teach in a different way. I'm not teaching you the curriculum that you're mandated to teach. I get to teach you life skills. I get to host your career fair. I get to bring in cultural night. I get to create these events that are outside of the classroom that allow you to enhance your lifestyle. But I've been able to do that not just in the virtual setting, but outside and then in my community. So that's why I said I'm an educator, but in a different sense of an educator. I'm not that teacher standing in front of you. I'm that support staff member that is creating those additional
But that makes you an
layers.
educator.
And I say
To me and to the children.
yeah. So it's
Title.
amazing. I am blessed and I enjoy what I do. My career goal is always to educate, empower, and create opportunities for young people. And that's what I've been able to do. So that's why it was great for us to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And you can see behind me, this is just my house setup. So I am one of those parents who has all the crazy stuff in their house and who does all the crazy things with their kids. And you can tell the difference in my children. People say that all the time, like, how old are they? And I'm like, they're 2 and 7. And they're like, no, they're not. I'm like, yes, they are.
Yeah, and it was funny because my son, we had in our handwriting, we were doing our E's, and in the beginning he struggled, and he's doing well with it now. And so I said, one day he asked, he said, "Mommy, can I practice my E's with you?" And I was like, "Sure." And it just kind of brightened my soul that even though I'm his teacher and we have a set time for school, and when school's over, that he still wanted to. He still seen that there was a space, there was an opening for him to still study, for him to still come to me and ask me to help him with some schoolwork, even in his free time. School's over, and it just is like, of course I can do that. Although he was just trying to do it so he can extend his bedtime, it was okay.
Most kids do that. I've learned that. So I guess because you're an educator, I feel like I need to ask you this. Do you have a recommendation or a suggestion for a parent who wants to incorporate more learning in the home routine?
So Montessori learning had really touched me different. Once again, I told you I was a little more rigid while I was in school, but when I got out, I had my son, I started learning a bit more about Montessori education. And so say for instance, sorting and matching. If you bring your child in the kitchen with you, okay, so before I go there, number one, the TVs and the screens have to come off if we want engaged learners, right? It's proven evidence, it's out there. It slows social communication and it stunts imagination. The two most important things we have to focus on with young children is one, stimulating their imagination, and two, creating a space where they can be social, where they can, if you come to my program now, there are not a bunch of toys there. There's almost nothing that has a battery in it, and everything is kind of recycled. Like, so outside in our play area, we set up a grocery station, right? Well, I don't have a big cash register out there. They use this oversized calculator that they take like all my old cards and gift cards that I get from the store, and they swipe it across there. They place in the numbers like, okay, that's going to be $20. They have their money out there, and when they grocery shop, they're using real items. So the spaghetti container that's empty, that's out there. The oatmeal container that's empty. If we had like a bean package or something of that nature, anything that tomato sauce in a can or whatever, all those things are out there. So that's things that's familiar to them. They see in their homes. You don't always have to spend a lot of money, but you just have to put a little bit more effort, to kind of save those things. When the toothpaste is over, save it and let them go shopping and explore that, because you're also exposing them to the spelling and the words when they're able to see it. They know spaghetti. But do you know how long it may take your 3-year-old to spell spaghetti? But how does that help them when they can continue to see a box every day that
Yeah.
says spaghetti pasta, spaghetti? We were going to, we were leaving from a farm, apple picking with my son, and we drove past this restaurant. And no kidding, it was called Pongo Pizza and Ice Cream or something like that. And my son, he's like looking around or whatever. He was like, "Oh, that's some pizza and ice cream." He said, "What about this pizza and ice cream place?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like I didn't even see the sign. And my son's talking about pizza and ice cream, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I look up, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I don't teach whole language reading. I don't teach whole language reading. So that that was something that he's seen, that he was familiar to him. So we
Mm-hmm.
have an obligation to, one, turn the screens off. When I go to a restaurant and I see a kid with the iPad at dinner time, or if I see a kid in the car with I think it's a
That is really how I learned how to read. My mother labeled everything in our house, and that's how, and
yes.
everything in my house was labeled for a point. But my daughter is now reading, and I'm working on my 2-year-old's handwriting. But keep going. But that is how I learned how to read.
It is how you learn how to read, because you'll continue to see those things all the time.
Yeah.
So and if I see a kid, they're on an iPad or a phone while you're driving, I'm like, it's the fall. The leaves are changing, the weather's changing, the scenery's changing, cars are going by. They're supposed to be looking out the window,
That's a
right? They're
conversation
supposed to,
piece right there. It's a
it's
simple
such a
conversation.
conversation piece. My son does not even sleep in the car. I think because since he was born, we always talked in the car.
Mhm.
Like I would like roll the windows down. I'm like, do you hear the cars? Do you hear the rain? Like we always had these different conversations. So I'm not saying that some parents don't like to talk as much, and that's okay. I'm not saying that you have to be a big talker, but you do have to incorporate your child in what you do. And we know that makes a difference. There's no way that if Beyonce shows her daughter she's singing and dancing, that's because she's been incorporated in what she does. If LeBron is playing basketball, so are his kids, because
Mhm.
they're incorporated with what they do. If there's a doctor who's always doing science or something of that nature, their children have been incorporated it. So been incorporated in what their parents do. So that's why they show interest in them.
Yeah.
So what I will say is continue to include your children in what you do. Turn the TV off. If you're putting the dishes away, for early education, early math, it's based upon matching and sorting. So if you're starting to cook and your child needs something to do, you can turn the television off and bring them in the kitchen with you and allow them to put the forks and the butter knives and the spoons in the separator that they belong in. It's math. It's early math. It's going to keep them busy, and it just incorporated them in the kitchen. So it's a win-win.
And
So
it's a lifelong skill.
it's a lifelong skill. Listen, my kids fold. I'm like, when you guys get up from your nap, go ahead and fold that blanket up for me. You four, grow up. Like, we're not doing that. Fold your own stuff. What are we doing
What are you for? Grow up. I'm saying that to my kid before, and my friend like, you are crazy. I'm like, no, she knows.
Yeah, you can do it. And once again, it's building confidence to tell
Yeah.
them that no, you can do this. Let me show you, and then let you do it yourself. And when they finish, aren't they so proud that they did that? They
Yeah.
just walk away. They're like, I did it. You want to see it? And then they come show it to you and unfold it again. So yeah, I would say that build your child up, give them the confidence that they need to be a lifelong learner,
Yeah.
and then incorporate them with what you do. If there are labels, if you're in the grocery store, don't give them advice to keep them quiet. Let them pick the apples out. Like let them put them in the bag. Ask them what color. Do you want to try the red apples today? If they say yes, then tell them about the apple. Oh, this apple is red delicious. If they want a green one, this is Granny Smith. Do you want to see what it looks like in the inside? Go home and open it with them. Like have that type of space with your child all the time where you're their first teacher, because that's how it's supposed to be. The
Yeah.
teachers come in and they kind of reinforce, I don't know about Michigan, but in Virginia, there's not a lot of flexibility in curriculum because they have to teach to test,
Mm-hmm.
so there's not a lot of space to go on a tantrum on a different subject. You kind of have to make sure that children have this in this space and time, and then you have to move on slightly quickly. But parents, we can continue learning all the time.
That's a good conversation right there. Teachers are in a position right now where they are teaching to test. So reality is a lot of your child's education and the way that they learn falls on you parents. But a lot of people think that it falls on the teacher. I don't know where the stigma came from, but a lot of parents are upset when their child cannot read. That is the teacher's fault. I hear that a lot. That's not the teacher's fault. I'm sorry if you're mad at me and you're listening. You got some responsibility in that. You have a lot of responsibility. I said you have a lot of responsibility in that. But what you were saying, those examples, those recommendations that you're giving, not only is it teaching your child, but it is also giving them the skill set to want to go out and figure it out for themselves. Because now they know how to have that conversation. It's bonding and having that conversation.
It's bonding. If you send your child to school, they're away from you all day. Wouldn't you just like to have something with them, that's just the two of you, or include the three of you, however many children you have? Wouldn't you just want to have that moment where you kind of just do something with them and you just kind of see the way they soak up, information and how they're learning? Like, because if you want, my son right now is playing the piano. I don't know anything about the piano, but he has an awesome teacher. He has an awesome music teacher. But when 3 days a week, we have to practice at home together. And so oftentimes I'm consulting with his piano teacher and saying, like, I recorded his lesson. Can you look at it? Can you see, if I'm directing him right, if he is moving at the speed that he should be? I'm always consulting with his piano teacher because he's the professional. He's a professional. He is seasoned in this. He's qualified. So no, I don't know the piano. I just know what I learned from the course and also through my son. And then I have to reinforce it at home in order for my son to be ready for his next lesson. If the only time he pulled the piano out was the once a week when he had his piano lesson, he would be where he started at. And also, where would his confidence be at? Because I don't want to be bothered with the piano because I don't play that. So I don't want to be bothered with it. It's like, oh, I'm not an educator. I can't teach you how to read. Granted, teaching reading is not as simple as many people would think. It's not. And actually, the way that I teach reading is one, exposing children to words, but reading often, reading as much as you can. It cannot be an option. Two, maybe I'll get to it. It's not an option. You have to read. My children have finished at their public library. They have a program which is 1,000 books before kindergarten. Both of my children, enrolled into our school, have already completed that.
Awesome.
Every summer the library hosts a reading program. My children have already excelled in that. They felt so happy they got a book and they got a little ice cream pass.
Yeah, we did that last summer.
You know what I'm saying? So they felt so happy about that. And we go to the library. The library actually has a program. This is only for schools. Our public library does, but they actually bring us the books. They would actually come drop the books off at our school and pick them back up.
Wow.
Now, because of the pandemic, they used to send a librarian out to read to us, or a library staff, but because of the pandemic, that has halted. But when it starts back up, we'll welcome them in. But just this week, last week, we went to the library. My kids are ecstatic to be there. They can't wait. I always take pictures of them, like the books all over the floor when we come in from the library, and they're like going to each one. I let them pick what they're interested in, and then other times I guide them into what I know they're interested in and let them look through that. But we have to make our children I don't mean to say that. We have to help our children fall in love with reading and stories, because we can talk about STEM all we want to, but there's no engineer
who can't read
without being a reader. There's no mathematician There is no doctor. I mean, can you imagine having an electrician come to your house who can't read? An architect build your home who don't know how to read? He don't exist. She don't exist. They not here. So we have to build readers. We really do.
And you can build readers as early as birth. As early as birth, reading to your kid, even when they're in your stomach, when they're born, when they get of age.
Did that when my son was born at our baby shower. I asked for everyone, rather than to send a card, I asked everyone to bring a book.
I did the same thing.
See, educators, we just think alike.
I did
Everything turns into a learning experience for us. Nothing is no moment is lost on us.
I always tell people learning is everywhere. Like you just have to maximize on those moments. It can be a simple conversation. My kid, I probably get on my kid nerves, but I can't even say I get on her nerves because I do it in such a fun way that she doesn't even realize what is happening. But she's qualified. She's ready for the world. She's very advanced.
That's what happens.
So even I'll give you an example. She asked last summer, can she do a lemonade stand? So this summer she did a lemonade stand. She did it, I want to say 2 or 3 times at this point. But now she understands saving her money, putting her money together, because she bought the stuff for her lemonade stand the second time. Mommy did an investment the first time. The second time, this was on you. So you had to take $100 off of what you made and put that towards your next, round of business. But she still has her money. Most kids spend their money.
I was a saver growing up, and I'm a saver now. Which a lot of people say don't save. You should be investing that money. It doesn't make money in the bank. But when you grow up without money, you just want to be able to see money. You want to be able to have a little nest egg.
I was just shocked because I had to go to her can I get change for something? Because sis got it together. I was like, all right, I need a loan. Can I get a loan? I'm gonna pay you back in this. She was like,
$5. I'm gonna get that back.
No, she was like, Mommy, you owe me $30. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna give you your 30. And she counted it right on up. But it helps with her money skills. That's what I'm saying. That lemonade stand helped with her money skills, helped with her management of money skills, which that is something new that we're just starting to work with, because you decided you wanted to launch a business. So you're launching a business. We're going to teach you how to work this business. She's 7. So imagine what she can do at 10 or 14.
But imagine what that does to her confidence already for when she gets to 14, when she's going to be into puberty, and 2 other children, and puberty, and that teenage, that age is kind of wicked,
So creating that
environment. Terrible twos, but that other,
I'm not ready.
Terrible twos is not as scary as the teenagers. But when you mentioned the lemonade stand, so our school, we have a community give back twice a year, and this year we did. I don't know if this is in Michigan. You'll probably have to check it out. But where our children's hospital, they have a lemonade stand, so they call it Lemonade Stand, and all the proceeds go to the children's hospital for childhood cancer and blood disorders. So we did that actually this summer. One of my babies, she's in 4th grade this year, she is battling cancer for the 2nd time. Her name is Kimber, so please keep my baby in your prayers. She is she's out of her chemo. She had a previous surgery, so she just needs transfusions, but she's probably going to be on, her parents last told me that she was going to be on chemo indefinitely. So we're just, continue to keep her in her prayers. But that's something we did. So maybe it's something you can look into, seeing if something like that exists for your daughter.
And that's what she asked for, though, for her birthday. That's interesting you say that. For one of our family reunions, we did a give back. She said, with my birthday money, Mom, can I do a give back? Can I give stuff to the homeless? But it's because she's been exposed to these things. She's seen it. So she knows it's within reach for her. So what we're saying to you parents, exposure is a big component of building the character of your kids. And that starts at home, because like we said, teachers are teaching right now to test. So the extracurricular, that support, that confidence, that is coming from you at home. And how you
have time to do it. And it's unfair to make them responsible for all of it.
When you say they don't have, are we talking about the teachers or the parents?
The teachers.
Okay.
They may not have time to. Some teachers find like yourself. You in a classroom, I would imagine that you would find some sort of creative way to infuse those things together. Some teachers are a little bit more rigid, and they actually don't find the the time or the space to incorporate children in the same way of, let me do this. This is going to, bring some care to the children. I remember this experience. This is real for me. When I was in elementary school, I told you I was raised by a single mom, and at this point we had been, it wasn't even the middle of the, it was almost the middle of the school year, and we had been in like 3 different elementary schools. So a lot of times when teachers see that, it's a red flag. Oh, this child is going to have this or that. I understand it now. I didn't understand it when I was in first grade. But so I was like in the classroom, and I didn't have school supplies, going inside class. And so I was asking the teacher a question, and she says to me, she turns around to me and like in front of everyone, and she's like, Latifah, I cannot teach you if you do not have your school supplies. I wanted to crawl into like a ball under a table. I was humiliated. Like I felt less than, because it was out of my control. If I could have supplies, I would have had supplies, so it was such a blow to me, to my confidence. I had already been in 3 different schools. I didn't have a teacher who I had formed a bond with. I didn't have any friends in this school yet. I was new here. And then I have this teacher who upset with me because I can't afford school supplies. Like that would have been a moment for her to build up another child's character and say, hey, could you share your
there we go
with, do you mind sharing some of your paper with, or what have you? It could have been anything. Because sometimes even when we're doing these back to school drives, I'm always wondering, like, what happened to the crayons from last year? Do they just go in the trash in a big melting pot? Like, where are
the crayons?
Because for me, I look at it like those aren't trash. And especially for early children who are the primary ones using them,
and they're gonna break them anyway.
And guess what? A broken crayon is actually the best crayon. Let me tell you, my kids don't use whole pencils. As soon as they start writing, we break pencils in half. They don't have to write with a pencil this long. Like, why are they writing with that? We break them in half. I make them small so that they can find their own way of what's comfortable for them to write. If they're writing with a long crayon and a long pencil, and it's all the way up here and they can't get there, break the crayon, break the pencil, let them find out. We're building fine motor skills here.
Yeah.
And it's, so we can allow them to do that on their own. So the broken crayons don't have to go in the trash. The pencils that are small don't have to go in the trash. We can save those for the following year for kids who come in who may lack supplies. And also the kids who come in with so many supplies, why they gotta be just their supplies? Why can't this just be a classroom, a list of classroom supplies?
And that's what my daughter's teacher did this year. This is the first year I experienced that. They don't ask, she asks for nothing. She's like, if you don't have supplies, it's okay. Because the school does donations, but they had everything. Of course, I sent my book back, but she has provided them with everything. This is the first year that we've ran into that. Whether at first I was buying out the whole store, I felt like I sending it to school, and she was still coming home and still need stuff, and I didn't understand that part. This is the first year though she has maximized. I do have to ask you a question because I kind of missed this. Is your school a Montessori, or do you just do Montessori practices? Okay,
it's not. I do Montessori practices. I can't do for one, it's a special training.
I know
two,
that
it's a special person that can do that as well. Like, to be so child-centered, like you're on a child schedule, I don't really operate that way. My kids have created their schedule kind of early on. Like, most people take a nap around right after lunch, like 12, 1 o'clock, everyone's going to nap. My kids don't really go down until closer to 2 because that's the time they felt was best for them. They're not cranky and not irritable, so I was fine with it, but I can't just be like, oh, you're not hungry, so it's not time to eat. It's time to eat. You might just be saying you're not hungry because you want to finish playing. And so Montessori, they move very fluid like that.
So we're a Montessori family.
Oh, good.
So my first daughter went to Montessori. My second daughter, she's just in a traditional childcare center right now. But we've spoken about putting her in Montessori because we can see the difference in the learning style.
It's a big difference. It's a big difference.
So because you're an educator, I do want you, for those who are not familiar with that style of learning, can you explain what that is and then the difference in the traditional?
Yeah, so Montessori, they have 8 principles that they run off. I can't name them all. I wish I would know. I would have probably
you brought it up. It's okay. Give us as much as you can.
If you need me to, I will pull them up and run them off.
No, it's okay. Just give us a brief overview.
Because you know how teachers do. We've looked like, hold on, let me go to
No, I don't know them either, but I know like we followed that practice for about 3 years with my oldest daughter.
It's amazing. It's a life practice, really, but they follow 8 strong principles that they utilize to raise children. But a lot of the key foundation that they run their programs off is independence, confidence, as well as independence, confidence, and also concentration. So concentration is a key. Maria Montessori is who you will have to look at if you want to know where it began. But she strongly believed in kids concentrating and focusing. So if you walk inside of a Montessori program, it's probably not going to sound as loud as it would be in a traditional program. Everything is set up for the kids' height, for them to move fluidly with independence. So that's how a Montessori program is really ran. You will probably not see any batteries inside their program. They don't use like battery operated equipment. Their classroom kind of stays. There's nothing on the wall but children's art, because they don't use those type of distractions. Everything is always, you probably won't see a plastic table. You'll probably only see wood, and things like that inside of a Montessori program. Montessori is, I would say, it's an amazing program. That's what we did with our children early on. And we still continue those practices of making sure they focus on confidence, independence, as well as concentration, which goes back to removing the screens. They don't need them. But we use Montessori in our program when we first start learning reading, because I realized that Montessori started with letter sounds before they moved to letter names.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started with letter sounds and lowercase letters, which is what we mimicked. And then they they start with cursive first. I just wasn't fluid enough to train. I didn't feel confident at the time trying to teach my kids were like 13 months. I didn't feel confident with teaching them with cursive first, because there wasn't enough things in cursive for me to show them all throughout the day. I just had this chart that was cursive, and that was it. Like none of the charts I had were in cursive. Like there wasn't a chart that was colored, the numbers that had cursive writing on it. So I decided to just start at lowercase letters. So we started at lowercase letters and letter sounds before we moved into capital letters and letter identification. And when I was in school previously, I had to teach my kids the difference between upper and lowercase letters. My kids, I never had to teach them that. They actually already picked up on the lowercase letter from the uppercase letter. So that was really interesting for me doing that. They had already picked that up on themselves. In a traditional classroom, it may be a louder classroom, and there may be more teachers than in a Montessori. Grandfather Montessori programs, believe it or not, they had like 20 kids to one teacher.
Wow.
I guess.
Well, that was our classroom. It's self-regulated. The kids are they're trained to be self-regulated. It's honestly, when I first toured them Montessori, I'm like, they're little robots. But they're perfect little robots.
I'm like, why are these kids not blinking right?
That's exactly when I first toured it. I was like, they're robots. Like, why aren't they climbing on stuff? Like, what's going on? I thought it was weird, but in the end, it was really an amazing experience. It was amazing to watch. Yeah,
like their own milk. They're doing it.
They're juicing. They were juicing in a classroom. But all of those things are real life things that you can incorporate in home.
They are. And I'm
that's
not
what it is.
Funny, but if you have a kid who's like with a single mom, or their parents doesn't have a lot of resources or something, those kids are already doing that at home. Just to think about it. If a mom's not home, a kid is preparing some food. They're pretty self-sufficient. They're letting themselves in and out. They're letting a younger sibling in. They have more responsibilities, and that's what Montessori taught, was having them have responsibilities. And I even took it a step further, and at pickup time, I would tell my parents, I would be like, because Montessori, they always said that your children should leave out their program with dignity, meaning they should not be held. So I used to tell my parents, because the kids would be so happy to see them, and sometimes they would just
Scoop them up.
shift from what they had been doing all day to reverting to a baby. And I would say, no, I'm sorry, you have to walk out today until you get to the car. Give mom a hug, but then when we leave, I need to see you walk to the car on your own, because you can do that. And that's what Montessori did. That's what I did with my children. And I see that they made a very big difference. The opposite of that is traditional learning, which many of us have learned that way. It's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes it's too rigid. Like we say, sometimes the kids can't think for themselves at all. They're kind of programmed into do this, and we finish, do this, do that, do that. It's nothing wrong with it, but it may not fit the personality of another child. And if they don't fit into that box or into that mold, sometimes the problem is sometimes that child will get labeled. So sometimes that's the issue with not giving children enough choices, is when they don't make the choices that you want them to make. Now you have to label them as something because they're the outlier. And we know that teachers have to teach to the middle, right? It makes sense, because if you have a child this high in the classroom, you can't, and you have a child this low. If I teach to this child, the kids down here
miss this one.
Lost. They're gonna miss it. And if I teach too low, then the children at the top are going to be bored. They're going to misbehave. So I have to teach somewhere in the middle, which is why parents have to fill in the gaps, because someone's going to miss something. That's just period. They're going to miss something because the teacher cannot meet everyone's individual needs and learning style in one moment. And then even like in high school, I was saying, we had like teachers who would teach you like a math problem, and you would be like, oh, okay, I know how to do it. I'm going to do it like this. They'd be like, no, I want you to do it the way I showed you. Even though the answer is the same. That's the rigidness, I worked the problem out. You could see how I got it. The answer is the same. Why do I need to do it the way you want me to do it?
And that's the current battle in the world right now. This new Common Core math situation where we're teaching them the tens and stuff. And when we learned it this way a few years ago, I'm still going to get you the same answer. My mama at home said I do it like this.
Why can I not just do it like that? Why is that a big deal? You know that is okay to do it. You know that they're going to get the same answer. If they have a parent teaching them at home and they're practicing it, it's not like the teacher can't follow where they're going with it. They can't. And the kid has assistant at home.
But
let them do it.
That's the data piece for teachers that teachers are pushing right now that parents aren't seeing. So a teacher literally, or when an administrator comes in to observe a teacher, the administrator is making sure that kid can do it the way that it's supposed to be taught according to the state standard. Mm-hmm. So parents, relax. There are state standards that your teachers are following. Yes, you want to make sure your kid gets the skill set, but in order for these schools to continue to be funded, it has to go this way, unfortunately. Now, if you want to take it a step further, then you might want to look into some political stuff. But that's the reality of the world that we're living in. You that parent. Let's go to the next level of political. But another, you said something about the teaching at the certain levels, and I just want to go back to the pandemic teaching. Did that affect your household at all? The pandemic and how it had to adjust? Or you have 2 kids, right? Or
yes.
Just 1? You have 2 kids.
Well, I have 1 child, but I have another one enrolled in the program.
Okay. So, I guess I'm trying to figure out my question. The homeschool versus the doing school from home. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that. Because I think as a homeschool parent, and when I say homeschool, I mean like you went out, you got this curriculum, you're your child's primary teacher. That's completely different from being enrolled in a virtual school or having a curriculum from a school and you're still in contact with the teacher, right? But finding out where your student is as a parent and working with them, no matter the setting, whether you're a homeschool parent or in that virtual setting. I don't know where I'm going, but you help me.
Okay, so let's say, because what we've been talking about is the roles and responsibilities. What we've been talking about up to this far was pretty much the roles and responsibilities that the teachers have as well as the parents have. And like you said, the teachers have an obligation to teach to test, and they have to teach it a certain way because of funding. Parents have more leisure to teach, to fill in the gaps wherever their children may be lost. And then we get to move them forward. You know, we can teach into mastery. Traditional school settings cannot. They cannot teach your child perfect penmanship. There is not enough time when they walk into kindergarten to teach them perfect penmanship, to try to teach that before perfect penmanship before first grade or so, when they're really writing all day, and it kind of needs to be legible. At some point, it's supposed to get more legible. Say, for instance, a child learning to read. The school would say your child needs to know how to read by third grade, right? So for parents who don't know, from grade 0 to grade 3, third grade, your child learns how to read. From third grade into the remainder of their education, they're reading to learn. So that's why it's extremely important that by third grade, children know how to read. And the ones who don't know how to read will continue to lose confidence, because reading becomes word problems. They're going to have to know the science, the history, all increases. These children are reading. They need to be able to read independently and also have great comprehension skills. So that's the key thing I don't want to leave out. If you have a child who is struggling, that is going into third grade, and they are struggling with reading in any area, phonological awareness, look it up. If they're struggling in any area, comprehension, breaking down words, because they're going to be moving into more and more spelling, is going to become difficult. Seek tutoring now.
Yeah.
If you do not feel like you have the skills for it, seek tutoring now. Do not allow your child to go into third grade and not be able to read at grade level. And I know that here we do assessment, so parents can have their assessment in school and see where their child is, what grade level they're reading at. And if you don't trust it, then you can have the tutor do another assessment, and that way you can make sure. We really want to hone in on that. Make sure you don't have a kid going into third grade or leaving third grade without being on level as reading, because it's going to go higher. They're going to go up in grades, but their reading level will go down or perhaps stay the same. We know that it's been children who are in high school who have middle school
Reading levels.
reading capabilities. So
Yeah.
we really want to make sure we hone in on that. But there is a difference between homeschooling and being in school. So say, for instance, right now with my kids, it's a little bit of a difference because they're preschool. But I'll say this, like right now we focus on reading, language arts, math are the three, and handwriting are the four subjects that we do daily, Monday through Friday. Those are all incorporated into our school day. And then we end up having some sort of social studies and a science activity that are incorporated, and art and music that are incorporated on specific days during the week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and some traditional programs, they don't run them that way. You know, I was in the program that I had loved in 2016. When I had got in there, they were saying, I was like, so I didn't see anything on the wall. I didn't see anything that showed me what the kids had did in the morning. I was coming in the evening, and I was like, well, what did they do this morning that I can kind of build on? And they was like, they didn't know. I'm like, so there's no like lesson plan, there's no skills to let me know, like, you know, they didn't have that. And then one woman was talking to me, she was like, yeah, because you know, this morning we had our little circle time, and I was asking them like what sounds the animals made. These were third grade. These were children that were 3 years old. We know, if you're an educator, you know the early morning is the most important time that you could teach something, because that's when they're fresh, they have ate, they're ready to focus. You have some time in that early morning. That's why we do reading first, because they're fresh and they're ready. And I was like, what a waste. It's how I felt, like, what a waste to spend the morning talking about animal sounds. We can do that outside playing. You know, that could be a game. It could be a fun,
So many ways to
music
do it.
activity. Why would we sit down and learn that? And then expect the kids who already know these sounds, because they're all three, to
Mm-hmm.
sit still. Once again, being labeled because they're doing something different. But so, as a homeschool parent, I get to incorporate personal values into what we learn. So household values, our family values, I get to incorporate that. We're a vegetarian family, so we learn all about all about vegetables. This year we're going to try planting again and doing our own gardening. We tried last year. I don't have a green thumb. I'm working on it. Okay, I'm working on it. Everybody just gonna have to be patient. Listen, I gotta keep some things alive, and the only thing that's staying alive is the kids around me. I'm telling you. So we working on it. So we're gonna be planting again in the spring or whatever. But I get to incorporate our family values and morals, and I get to do a lot of character building, as well as I get to have more freedom to be outside more. You know, when virtual learning happened, I had some people, they were like, "Do you do virtual learning?" And I was like, "Well, I could do that." I had space for a child, older elementary school age child. And I was like, "Well, I could do that. What does their schedule look like?" Because for me, I was thinking they're virtual learning, so they're going to log on, do their math, and then I'll help them with it. They come outside with us, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, no, they get like 10-minute break, and then they go back to the screen, and then they get a lunch. And after their lunch, I was like, isn't it virtual learning? I thought it was supposed to be like less rigid. And I was like, oh, I can't do that then, because I could not walk past a child all day
On a computer.
sitting on a computer and then asking them to perform in that way when this is the first time they've had to do it. I just couldn't ask them to do that. So I declined that, because that's just not the type of learning that I believe is effective. So, what, your experience of assisting with virtual learning, what is that like for you?
My experience was completely different from most people's,
Hmm.
because I knew not to go to a traditional public school. Traditional public schools had no clue what they were doing because it was all new to them. So I enrolled my daughter into an already established virtual school, which I happened to work for. So I already knew that it was established. The first couple of years when I got here, we didn't have the sense that we have now of virtual learning. Our school opened in 2013, I think, and I came on in 2015. In 2015, we were like a baby learning to walk. It's 2020, what, 2020? Okay, we got it figured out now. We hit some years under us. And no, we don't have kids in front of the computer all day. There's an offline component. That offline component requires your kid to be outside investigating, going on a scavenger hunt. Or we're sitting to the side writing a story together. That's part of her handwriting, or we're doing worksheets. But all of this was mailed to me. So I had pretty much an online curriculum for her to follow. There were things like interactive things that she did, games for her math. There was like right now this year, so we didn't have him last year. There's an aviator called Strider. He's like a cartoon character who's walking you through your lessons. So it's interactive for the child. So, and then in addition to that, we were taking field trips that coincided with the lessons. I was able to preview her lessons to make it real life. For me, if education without utilization of it, it's invaluable. So let's use what you're learning outside of the home. So that was my experience with it. But then on the other hand, I had friends who their kids had to be at the computer at 8:30 a.m. and they were there till 1 o'clock, and then that was lunch, and then had to come back on at 1:30.
Which we know that's not effective, right? We know that one, is not effective, and two, it feels like it makes learning almost feel like a punishment. I'm certain your child might have the same experience that my son has, which is they don't look at a day off of school as a break or a relief. It's just like, oh, okay. Like my son is like, we don't really have school on Monday,
Mm-hmm.
but he's going to do his reading work on Monday. Like,
He like wants to go still. Like he wants
yeah,
to,
it's
yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like, because reading is already, life is already centered and focused around learning. It's not like he has to sit on a computer and learn. It's not like he has to read 100 pages before Monday. No, it's fun. This is what we enjoy doing. We like seeing the progress of it all. So it's not a punishment. Yes, we all need a break. I'm not saying that children don't, but I'm saying that it doesn't look. It's for me with him. It just doesn't look the same way. It just doesn't.
I get it 100%. I just wanted to have that conversation, but now that we even had that conversation, I was thinking about it when the pandemic first hit. She was in a charter school, and she did have that. It wasn't a rigorous schedule. It was they didn't know what to do, but they still needed to account for these kids by the state kind of schedule. So at that point, I took matters into my own hand and started creating my own worksheets. And we had ABC Mouse because mommy still had to work at that point. But even after ABC Mouse, we got a video. We started making YouTube videos of her doing different science experiments. We put the soap in the microwave. Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking about, I did have a heck of experience in the beginning. And then the second part, I'm like, no, y'all not about to play me another year. We're going to learn.
Y'all make me work too much. So that is another thing for parents to kind of know is there are free resources for them.
Yeah.
They can go to the library and utilize some of the free resources that they have there. There's a new system that we just learned about, which is called Khan Academy.
Yeah.
And it's it's not set up for PCs yet, but you can use it on your smart devices, so your phone or like an iPad that you have, and it's all skilled to learning. Now the Khan Academy Kids is for kids 5 and under.
Wait, are you talking about KHAN Academy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you can use it on the PC.
You can't. Okay, so I thought it wasn't skilled for the PC yet. Okay.
No, you can use it on the PC, and you can use reading.com to assess it's reading A to Z. You can assess your child there for reading.
Absolutely. And there's assessments on ABC Mouse too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, ABC Mouse is going to charge you. So if it's an issue with, if there is an issue with price, then you can utilize those other resources. This is my cousin commenting on it. I love him. My cousin Eddie. Hey, cuz. But there are some those are some free resources. And if you go online, if you're curious about where your child's going to be at, because in Virginia, your children do not have to go to school at 5 if you're not ready for them to go. So even if they're in the right time frame as far as their birthday, and you want to keep them home, like say for instance, you stumbled upon this podcast on this network, and you was like, you know what? I think I might want my child to go to Garden of Learning, Virginia for a year before they go into school. So because that program is geared towards kindergarten readiness, you can actually go to, I think it's called like K5.com. Play around with that. I wish I would have had that up, but I can look at it and I can post it underneath this if someone needs that. And you can look at for your grade level where your child, the things that they're supposed to know. So if you decide to homeschool, one, you want to decide why you're doing that. Someone said kindergarten isn't required in Michigan either. Okay, so yeah, so it's so you could homeschool it, but this is the thing. Kindergarten now moves fast paced. It's no take a nap, and those kids when they get in, they hit the ground running. So we do want to make sure that we have a plan, and part of that plan is the family plan and then the school plan. And what the family plan looks like is what are the essentials that you want your child to know? What are your family morals? Our program is ran off character development. We want children to have use expressive language. We want children independent. Those are some of the things that our program runs off. So a parent has to define that for themselves. Then they need to find out what is the school plan. And the school plan will look like, what does your state require? Because just keep it, while we may want to homeschool, if it later on it turns into we can't homeschool and you have to put them in a school setting, you still want your child to be prepared, because they still have to take tests in order to go to college. They're not skipping over anything because you're keeping them home. They're still going to be responsible for knowing the material. So then parents need to find out how they teach them. One, before they even start teaching the material, what is the material their child needs to learn?
The state standards. You can find those in your education department website.
Yes. Find what the standards are for your child to learn for the grade level that you're keeping them at. And then curriculum is just going to be what you teach and how you teach it. for parents who are new to teaching, who aren't teachers, it might be wise to find scripted curriculums that kind of tell you to say this and then wait for the child to say that. Though, I mean, it can feel a little weird in the beginning. It can feel weird in the beginning. It has that weird feeling to it, but it helps you stay on track. Because when you're teaching something, you know, of course, you can teach a kid how to spell cat, but how do you teach a kid who doesn't know how to blend any of that together? So you might need something scripted to do that. So those things, that is really essential when it comes to homeschooling, is how you put those, how you lay the plan out. And then lesson planning, listen, let me tell you, my day is so long. It really is. I'm up at like 4 in the morning. I don't have no free time, you know, because what I realized with teaching, especially like teaching at home with the small children, is I first have to get up and prepare my space so that I can prepare their space. So I really have to like get up, and I like to pray. I listen to mom devotionals in the morning or whatever the case may be. It's this one, it's really good. It's called the Better Mom Devotional. And it's on Audible in case parents want to you know, don't have time to physically read in the morning, and they, you know, or they're keeping the lights low and they just want to listen to it. The Better Mom Devotional, and it's amazing. It just gives you so much inspiration and helps you to really center yourself before you move forward. And so with your day. So I get up and I kind of do that. I work out for a little bit, and then I get myself, you know, ready for the day to kind of start preparing their day. Now I am a little more seasoned, so my lesson plans are done. I'm not cutting and doing stuff in the morning. We're ready to go when school starts in the morning time. When we open up at 7:30, but currently my kids get there about 8 o'clock. So parents have to have a schedule, you know, they have to have a plan. And how long do you plan to homeschool? Miss Turner says, I would like to homeschool the entire time. I would like to homeschool my child through high school.
Oh, awesome.
And I would, and I kind of foresee high school looking so different. Like I really want to make high school college for him. Were you told in school, oh, they're not gonna do this for you when you get in when you get in college? When you get in college, they, you know, the teachers aren't going to do this, or this isn't going to be this way for you in college. But no one talks about how do you do these things
in college.
You know, how do you do these things in college? So I really currently right now, like when we're outside playing, I see the kids, because we're across from the high school, I see the kids leaving, the seniors leaving high school around 11:30, right? And I'm just like, what are these kids going home to do at 11 o'clock in the morning? Like, I don't understand. In Hampton, there were about 10 graduates who graduated with advanced diplomas, and an associate's degree from
college,
community college, with scholarships, full scholarships to go to for a higher degree. Why are kids getting out at 11 o'clock when there are so many other avenues for them to?
But that's where they're going. That's where they're going. When they leave at 11:30, they're either going to co-op or to college opportunities, college classes later in the day, or, you know.
I hope so. I hope that's what's taking place, because, you know, I'm just seeing a bunch of kids on phones walking. They're like zombies. I'm like, please don't let this be where their learning stops. She says, I'm on the fence about doing the same. So nervous. Jessica, I say continue it. For one, the bond with your children is so amazing. That is just so critical. And I also think that we have to continue to just build our children up with the confidence that they're going to need when they go to college. We're asking kids now, what do they want to be when they grow up? My son, he wants to be the veterinarian, okay? So he is obsessed with animals, and if he sees an animal near him, he's going to give him a bandage, okay? So he literally watches like veterinarian surgeries and stuff on TV all the time. That's what he wants to watch. My husband's stomach is always upside down. He's like, I don't understand why this little kid wants to watch this. He was telling me one day, he was like, I didn't know a spleen looked like that. He was like, why is he watching that? So we're asking kids at this age, what do they want to be when they grow up? when they get older, we're asking them what they want to be when they grow up and how they apply themselves. I wish that I would have had so many more opportunities to see um, so many different fields of studying
Mm-hmm.
when I was going to school. Like for everything I said I wanted to do, if I wanted to be a teacher, like if I want to be an educator, like it would have been nice if I could have seen the work that you do.
Yeah, you don't have to just be a teacher to be an educator.
Exactly. You don't have to do that. It'd have been nice when I was thinking about being a nurse. I could have seen when I was pregnant, I had to get blood work for our life insurance policy. And the nurse came over to my house at like 6 in the morning. She was like, "Oh, I have to come early because my son has a soccer game." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "I never heard this before." Nurse making house calls before she goes her own schedule before she goes to her
But a
son's
lot
soccer
of this
meeting.
stuff is just being created too, though. Times are
That
always
is.
changing. A lot of this stuff is just coming up. I have to go back. I don't mean to cut you off, but
Go ahead.
um the 1 year of homeschool that I had with my daughter, I wanted back, but she wanted to go back to school. She asked
That's
to go
true.
back for the social piece. But to be honest with you, before the pandemic hit, I'm like, I don't have time to homeschool my kids. The pandemic hit showed me that I could homeschool my kids. Yes, it was a
And
virtual
work.
curriculum that, yes, and work. So I know it's
Mm-hmm.
within reach. Oh, I was stressed though. I ain't gonna sit here and act like I held it together. I cried a lot. I cried a lot as a homeschool mommy. Um, but I like just watching the aha moments and, like you said, the bonding piece and just being able to get up and go and take school with us everywhere, or just applying that
Absolutely.
learning everywhere was amazing. So if you're a parent who is on the fence, I encourage you to at least try it. If I didn't have the pandemic, I would have never tried it. But now that I tried it, I know I can do it. And if she decides that school is not for her, I know we can go back into this zone and get it done.
Also, I would say with that, the primary time for parents to try homeschooling is during the summer. So the
Mm.
summer slide exists where students go through this whole 9 months of learning and lose it all over those 3 months of being out of school. So if you are curious about homeschooling and your child's learning, then take what they have already learned and just reinforce it all summer long. Like they can be outside and you can do whatever you want to. If you don't want to homeschool, it's not in everyone's reach to want to do that. It's not everyone's desire. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what I will say is if you are curious about being an active participant in your child's learning, please do it over the summer. Find the time and the space to prevent them from losing everything that they just got.
Yeah.
And the social piece is interesting, because people say this all the time. They're like, "So what are you going to do for your if you homeschool, what are you going to do for his social needs?" And I'm like, "We talk." Like everyone is so concerned. I mean, everyone is so concerned about the his lack of social skills. No
Mm-hmm.
one ever asked me what type of curriculum I use, what
Mm.
certifications that I may have. No one asked me what style of teaching I use. No one asked me what my planning or my day looks like, what his day looks like. The first thing people assume about homeschool children is that they're not socialized. It could be nothing further than the truth. My son is almost over socialized. He doesn't involve in screens. The time frame I tell you he gets to watch those shows, he gets twice a week. He gets Mondays and he gets Friday. Just recently, he has been added a cartoon on Sunday mornings when he eats his breakfast. He gets to have that time, But this month we are using um, Writing Without Tears. We're using that this year, and this month will be our first time introducing it with the typing portion. So we're really going to
Mm.
be doing that this year. So he's not missing any social time at all. So that's one thing parents, if they try to, who's my child going to talk with? How are they going to get communication? How are they going to get socially active? He has piano, he has friends, he has school, he has me, he has reading. He's not, I think naturally my son has always been a bit introverted, but his parents look the same way. Me and my husband both. We can care, like me and you've been talking this whole time. It's our first time meeting each other, but I feel like I know you,
Yeah.
when I was talking to Rodney, I'm just like, oh, what's up? Like we had like this conversation. We don't know each other, but we're having this great conversation with each other as well. But I am not the overly, outspoken person or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be. So I think my son just takes to that naturally, but I don't think that's a part of him being homeschooled. I do think that, like if you take my son, and this could be his personality, but I'll, kind of like wrap it up with how we train. My husband is oftentimes not at home. He works for the government, so he has to travel. And so my son had to go a lot of places with me. And because of that, I needed to train him how to behave. You need to sit down. You need to be quiet. You need to be still. Take this book and sit down. You can't play with a ball in the doctor's office. You can't be
Mm-hmm.
running all over these floors. It's nasty. People walk on these floors. We can't be playing on the floor. You're going to have to know how to sit down. So even in my car, there's crayons. Well, we had to take them out because we had an episode with the crayons melting. So
Oh
we'll be
man,
bringing them back
when
we're
it's not
bringing them
hot.
back, this winter. But crayons, so he can color in the car if he wanted to, or take that into a place that we're going. If mommy needs to go to the bank, and it might be a little bit of weight, he can have his cards, he can have a book, he can have some pencil and paper, or whatever the case. My cousin got him this cool writing pad that he can use his finger, so he'll take
Sweet.
that with him. So he's not missing the social piece. And I did ask him that because he wants the school bus.
Mm.
He wants the school bus. But the thing is, my husband has already said he's not getting on the school bus.
Even if he
my
went to
husband's
school.
my husband's kind of terrified about young children being on the school bus because the new you got to turn the news off. The kids getting dropped off at the wrong bus stop, and every time if we're behind the bus and a little kid is getting off the bus with that big old backpack, he's like, oh man, that little kid on that school bus. He is so nervous about it. So even if he was 5 years old, he would not be on the school bus anyway. So, but I did ask him. I said, would you like to go to school? Like, is that someplace that you would like to be at or whatever? He's like, no, mommy, you're my teacher, and
Oh.
I wanna stay at your school. And I was like, okay. And I'm flexible. I am not in any way, shape, or form going to make it seem as if this is what he has to do. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that if he chooses at any point in time, or we as a family choose that maybe he should go to school, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
perfectly fine with that. I'm almost certain that he's probably going to enjoy being at home more than he's going to be at school.
All right. So before I let you go, and
Yes.
I have to ask this, if you are interested in homeschooling, where should you start looking for a curriculum?
So it depends upon the age range. Like if you're gonna teach your early educator, you're gonna be like an early educator, like how I am, and I have 3 to 5 year olds.
Mm-hmm.
Curriculum is going to be based upon one, the state standards, and then two, um, one, the state standards, and then two, the curriculum that you're going to choose. It's going to be the one that you feel is going to work best for your child. Curriculums can be very pricey. So you might want to join a homeschool group and see if someone has a curriculum that they could perhaps allow you to see. You're gonna, can I use if someone I have a 4 year old? Does anybody have a pre-K curriculum that I can borrow? That's where I would go. You can sometimes go to schools. Sometimes they have, if you have a inside person in the school, sometimes at the end of the year they don't use those things again, and then you can maybe pull from your school system. I would say you can always start there, but it's going to be no curriculum is complete. That's where you just have to find out. You have to supplement. So that's where knowing what your state standards are is going to be the most important because you have to supplement. And because your child is at home, you should be teaching the mastery. So you'll need a lot of supplemental material because the curriculum just won't be that long. Like currently, right now, for math, we're using Dimensions Math, and it's a Singaporean based math math curriculum. It's scripted. So I like that about it being scripted. But say for instance, we did when we started with patterns, and we started with ordinal numbers. It's probably about 6 pages of material there, but that's not mastery for my children. They have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of activities that are still included that you can use, so you can continue that. So I would say that's one. You want I like a teacher's workbook. So I want physically have something in my hand. So I would stay away from using ABC Mouse as your curriculum. I just
It's
would.
not
I
a
just
curriculum, it's a reinforcer to me.
But some people think it's the some people may get confused and think that that is teaching your child how to read. And so I don't want anyone to get confused with that. But there are two resources for reading that I would say you can utilize. Alpha Phonics is a reading resource that you can use, and also it's another one, Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. Now, teaching your child to read in 100 easy lessons is scripted, so that would be one for parents who want a scripted reading program. They can use that. Alphaphonics is not, but it does have your teaching resources in the back of the book, so it will help you teaching 100 learnings before 100 lessons before. No, I'm sorry. How to teach your child in 100. How to teach your child to read in 100 lessons. I believe that
Okay.
one goes up to second grade, and Alpha Phonics goes up to a third grade reading level. So
Oh wow.
you don't have to buy another one. You can continue to use it as your child goes along, and I would say they're inexpensive. So that kind of covers you on the reading, math, and language arts, and you have to supplement. You know, there aren't a lot of curriculums for science and history and social studies for this young age group, so you'll have to use supplemental material. Use Pinterest and Teachers Pay Teacher.
Well, thank you. That was great information because personally, I didn't know that I could buy a scripted curriculum. That is what I enjoyed about my experience. The school that I enrolled her actually sent me the scripts for everything, scripts for their curriculum, but I didn't know that there were ones that I can go out there and purchase and just follow on my own outside of being enrolled in a virtual public, school. So
Absolutely.
if you
And they
learn
can be affordable.
if you learned something today, definitely comment below because I was like,
Yeah,
I'm an educator and I'm still learning. So parents, have the conversation. It's okay to be a lifelong learner. I think that's a great thing.
absolutely.
I think most people think learning stops and it doesn't. That's every day in life that you will be learning.
They say
Miss
the know it all knows nothing.
the know it all knows. That's a status. That's a status. That's a status right there. Let them know where to find you and find out more information about your center.
Absolutely. I am Garden of Learning Virginia. I see he got Garden of Learning Virginia. He got my VA up there. I'm Virginia. Garden of Learning Virginia on all platforms. We're on social media on Facebook and Instagram, and Garden of Learning Virginia, just VA, Garden of Learning VA. .com if you want to read some information. Thank you, Rodney. If you want to read more about our program, or if you can also reach out to me if you have questions about homeschooling or curriculums. I will gladly share that information to you. I can give you more resources on some of the better ways that you can use to lesson plan, and some of the resources that I use to do that. Yeah, just some of those things that you can potentially use. Handwriting, penmanship, and letter formation is important. We writing without tears. Um, I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Writing without tears is the new one we're using this year, and I really, really like it more than those Dollar Tree workbooks that you get. They try, they do. They try. They're $1, so you're gonna get what you get with that. But that curriculum, and it's paper, so you can make copies and use it for your whole family. You can continue
Mm.
to use it on up. Letter formation is important. It's very important. We need to make sure that our children have good penmanship when they're going to kindergarten. So make sure that you look at the guidelines for the K through 5. You really want to make sure that if you're going to teach younger children, that you are preparing them for kindergarten and beyond. So we really want to make sure that we do that. prepare your child for kindergarten and beyond. That's just period. Like, there's nothing more to say about that. There's nothing more to add. Your kid needs to come into school, know how to spell their name. They need to be introduced to writing. They must be introduced to letter sounds. Please don't let your child start and they have never heard you make a sound. But that means they're going to be starting at zero, going into a program that by the end of the year, they should be blending. So we want children to hear letter sounds. We want them to have practiced a little bit of blending. And we also want them to know letter identification as well. And they should be spelling and writing their own name by then as well, if they're going 5th and 6th grade. That's my suggestion for parents to do.
So much good insight. You are so valuable. Even as you were talking, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, she said kindergarten through 3rd grade, they're learning to read, but 3rd grade and beyond, they're reading to learn. And that was like, I honestly want to write that down, especially considering the 3rd grade reading law that's taking place. But that's a whole nother conversation we can have, right? I'm going to wrap this up because I got kids I got to go get to bed. They hanging out so that we can have this discussion.
My son is out there doing something with his godparents. He told me today, he said, you can drop me off. And I was like, okay. Because normally he doesn't do that. But today he said I could. And I was like, well, that gives me some peace so I can talk with Kristen. And everyone, before you go, everyone's concerned about the children's socialization, but no one is concerned about my socialization. Okay?
Nobody's concerned about
politics with a 4-year-old. Okay.
I gotta talk politics. I feel your pain, but that's a whole nother podcast right there. Nobody want to talk about that. But I want to thank you. Thank you for your expertise, your knowledge, your experience. You definitely, like I said, put a lot of gems out there. And parents, if you're listening, take heed, take note, because you're your child's first teacher, and their education really is your responsibility. So choose wisely, choose wisely, get invested. You're your child's first teacher, no matter what. First thing first.
Your child is going to be in the world. Like, this is who is going to be paying into Social Security so that we can have a little bit, we want to send out productive children. We do. We don't want to judge the children about what they're doing right now. We just want to continue to send our children out and the children we meet. Yeah. We want to help them be productive and be confident and be curious learners. So if you take anything away from this, it's really about building the foundation. Whether you're at home or your child is at home with you, in school or virtual, any type of, hybrid type of program or whatever the case it may be, look for resources. There's so many out here, and really help your child build a confident learner, build a curious learner, because it will pay off in the end. It really will. Yeah. So I thank you, Kristen, for allowing me to share this conversation with you and your beautiful audience today. Rodney for putting this together. And once again, my cousin Latoya, Dr. Latoya. I got to say that because that's big. Dr. Latoya Sybills. Yes. See what happens? She's a product. We can talk about that too. She's a product of teenage pregnancy.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Well, keep being great. Keep being great. Yes. Well, thank you, listeners. Hang out here for me for a second, Latifah. And have a good one, you all. Have a blessed week. Go be a lifelong learner.
I am excited to talk to my ladies primarily. And guys, if you want to be here with me, hang out. I want to welcome you into my space, my world, my thoughts, and I want to share them with you. And I hope that it inspires someone. It brings about some transformation.